All right. Well, Erin, are you going to give some intro comments?
Sure, I'm going to give a little intro. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here with us today. My name is Erin Nevius. I'm ACRL's content strategist, and this is ACRL Presents, introducing the Fostering Change Cohort. As Gina mentioned, today's session is being recorded, and we'll post the recording on ACRL's YouTube channel and link to it from ACRL's website. Please make sure your chat box is set to go to all presenters and attendees and add any comments you have throughout the presentation. Questions can be sent anonymously via the Q&A function. Presenters will address these at the end of their talk. I'd like to thank today's presenters and the facilitators of the new Fostering Change Cohort, Danny Breeker-Cook, Sojourner Cunningham, Cynthia Ippoliti, and Brianna Marshall. ACRL is very excited about the new professional development opportunity they have created and the enormous amount of work and talent that's gone into it. This is a free webcast, and ACRL's other free professional development opportunities are made possible in part by your ACRL membership, which helps fund many of our programs and services for the academic and research library community. Not a member? Join nearly 10,000 of your colleagues and become a member today. Visit ala.org/ACRL/membership for more information. Presenters, feel free to start when you're ready.
All right. Thanks so much, Erin. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you being here to learn about the Fostering Change Cohort with us. So this is the first time that we'll be offering this, and we're looking forward to learning with you today and learning about some of the things you're thinking about and the changes that you're considering. So we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So Sojourner, if you could click it, please. So hi, everyone. My name is Danny Breeker-Cook. I'm the Associate University Librarian for Learning and User Experience at the UC San Diego Library. I'm also on Twitter at Danny B. Cook. So we're all going to share a little bit about a change that we've worked on to give you a sense of the scope of the kinds of changes that we've worked on together and the kinds of expertise that we bring to the table. So a change that I've recently worked on is the UC system recently went through a system-wide ILS migration to go to the first ever system-wide integrated library system. So that had, of course, lots of internal change management issues, but as well as externally to all of our users for whom this is a really significant change. And I'm going to turn it over to Sojourner to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sojourner Cunningham. I am the Social Sciences and Assessment Librarian at the University of Richmond, and I am very happy to, I don't see all your faces, but I'm happy to see all the names of the participants. Just a quick change that I have gone through recently and I'm still kind of undergoing involves rewriting the hiring processes at our library with more of an emphasis on DEI. And that goes on to Cynthia.
Oh, great, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Cynthia Ippoliti. I'm the director of the Auraria Library, which serves a tri-institutional campus in Denver, Colorado. And my change experiences revolve more around organizational level change, so both within library departments, but also related to how the library fits into larger change initiatives on campus as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Brianna.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Brianna Marshall, and I'm the Senior Associate Dean at Northern Kentucky University, newly here, only 2 months. One change that I have worked with recently, and this is sort of a fun one to mention because I actually collaborated with Danny in our previous roles, was a departmental reorganization, moving away from a subject specialist model to a functional model.
So hopefully that gives you all a little idea of the kinds of changes that we've been a part of before, and hopefully some of those resonated with you. So today we're actually going to have some opportunities for you to participate and us to learn a little bit about you. So on our next slide, we have a link to a question on a Jamboard, which is a Google product. So we're going to ask you if there's a kind of change that you're already thinking about. We'd love to hear about it. So I'm going to put the link in the chat to that Jamboard.
Danny, the Bitly wasn't working properly, so we're just put the link. We just put the link in there right now. Erin, just
okay. Well, thank you for adding those links. So if there's a change that you're thinking about, we'd love to hear about it as we start to think about what this cohort might be working on. So we'll give you a moment to get in there. I see we have a lot of exotic Google animals already there. Thanks for joining in.
So Cynthia was just going to quickly share. Okay, there we go. Just an idea of what the Jamboard actually looks like.
Perfect, thank you.
And I'll add in, if you haven't used a Jamboard before, have no fear. All you need to do is go over to the left side of the page and just click on, yes, perfect, thank you, whoever's doing that. Click on that sticky note icon, and then you'll be able to pick your color and add a sticky note. And really, just any ideas that you have about the types of change that you're looking to implement or to create a plan for, we'd love for you to add them in here.
And just as an aside, one of the reasons we did Jamboard was because it's anonymous. So anything you want to add, feel free and know that you will be an anonymous llama.
Or other folks that like I can't even.
There's an ocelot, I think.
Yeah, I saw some kind of animal that had like an X in its name. I've never heard of it. Anyway, so we've got some folks breaking down hierarchies within the library team, which I think is great. Hiring practices as well. So Sojourna's comment, I think, really resonated with that person. Transitioning from a traditional reference or research help desk to an on-call model. Welcome to my life right now. We're doing that again in my workplace, fixing workflows to maximize Alma and Leganto opportunities, expanding networking strategies on campus, trying to move the library away from focusing on reference and research support as its main services to spearheading textbook affordability and OER initiatives, tighter integration with instructional design. Awesome. I think we have a fair amount of expertise on that here too. Definitely interested in yours. Our library has been absorbed into campus IT. Wow, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. New leadership at our library and at the university. I need to do strategic planning, trying to help the library automate different processes. So a lot of really different kinds of changes that all exciting to think about. I think really speaking to the kinds of challenges that academic libraries are facing right now. So thanks so much for sharing kind of what you're thinking about. I'll speak for myself, and seeing some of those, I'm like, wow, those are things that I'm working through right now too. So I'm hoping that you might find some community in this group. So we're gonna go back to our slides now. Thanks, Sojourna. And I'm gonna fix the bit.ly before our next Jamboard situation.
So let's try that.
So we are talking about this specific 12-week cohort program that will be guiding beginning in late September. But we do want to share with you that we know that not everybody has the time or the institutional power or the bandwidth to engage in this kind of work at this time. Like, we are still in the pandemic. We are still, I think, a lot of us struggling. And we just want to say that we see you, and we know what that feels like, and that we are committed to trying to make resources available outside of the cohort structure as well. So we're talking with ACRL right now about how we can share those things, and we'll also share with you that this cohort is kind of loosely built around the Fostering Change guide, which was published last year. So if you can click it, please, Sojourna. I believe that's our next slide, which was commissioned by the ACRL Roles and Changing Landscapes Committee. So this is a free and open guide that includes a lot of exercises that we'll touch on during the cohort, and we definitely encourage you to check out as well. So some of the core principles of the guide are that they include ways for you to engage and modify the work so that it works for your particular context, that it's thinking about what does it actually look like to be involved in change on the ground, making those changes, and it's not kind of like, here are some theories of change management and good luck applying them. It's designed to be useful for both you as an individual or as a group. Specifically, yeah, absolutely, we can share that link in the chat. I think Erin just did, so thank you, Erin. The cohort is meant for groups, But if you are an individual leading a change or thinking about a change, then this is, I think, a great tool for you. And it also includes at the beginning, if you're kind of thinking about like, we know we need to make a change, but what? Some tools that can help you identify what the what might be. So definitely encourage you to take a peek at that resource. And then if you can click it, please. So yeah, here we are, still in the pandemic. We know that we're thinking about all kinds of different changes, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming. So one of the goals for this cohort is to create that community and to have sort of a network of folks who are also dealing with similar changes and or just they're dealing with change, right? I think that sometimes it can feel really isolating to be in this space, like a little dog in the middle of the fire, saying this is fine. So just want to again acknowledge that this is a reality that's happening, and we hope that you can find some community in this experience. Okay, so in this webcast, we're going to focus on an overview of what the cohort model will look like. We're going to specifically talk about the timeline, the content, and the deliverables. So what the teams are going to walk away with after the 12-week experience. And then we'd like to ask you for your input on what you'd like to get out of the cohort. So we are pretty close to finalizing our curriculum. However, there's space for us to adapt and learn as we're completing this process. So we'd love for you to continue to be involved in the Jam boards throughout the webcast. And I'm so sorry to hear about the fire in your library, Laurel. That's awful. I just read the library book by Susan Orlean, and yeah, that LA library fire too. So, all right, I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues. Sojourner, you need to unmute, I think.
I always do that. It's amazing. I keep saying 18 months and I still haven't figured out Zoom. So our goal is to provide, or at least the goals of the Fostering Change, is to provide a cohort model that provides a mix of content and structured interaction that ultimately allows us to be flexible and iterative and learn from each other. Like personally, I learn more from my colleagues than, or I learn a lot from my colleagues than necessarily the structured format. Oh, my friend is at Kansas State. That's why I said Kansas, because I heard about that particular fire. Okay, so we built this syllabus around the Fostering Change workbook, coaching guide, and supplemental readings. The goal of the content is to teach the vocabulary and the history of change and communication. Within the content, we will also break into groups based around weekly, based around interest for community, with the goals of community building and group discussion. We have the goal of having each group leave with a project plan for their change. It will include a communication plan, some assessment goals, and a structured analysis of the change possibilities of your institution. These goals are scaffolded and built off of each other. More than anything else, we look at this as an opportunity to be in community with each other and learn from each other. So we are finishing populating Moodle with the syllabus, but we started each week with specific learning outcomes that again build off each other. We have theme weeks like organizational culture, change preparedness, and project management. And we pushed and helped each other as facilitators think about making sure that each week y'all walk away with something tangible and helpful. So I personally know that learning outcomes are a pain in the butt to create, but we know that the goal of something like this needs to be tangible. And we are asking you to commit time and money for skills, and we have created accountability for ourselves and for the cohort. So just another quick Jamboard question. What types of organizational challenges do you anticipate facing?
And to get to this page, you'll just click on the next page at the top of your Jamboard. So there's a different page for every question.
Cynthia, you are a great Vanna White. Like, I love the good circles. They're very, very like perfectly circular. Thank you very much. Here, oh yeah. In the before times, we would have happy hours and we talked about a lot of how much libraries deal in fear of the unknown. So yes, I completely hear and understand that fear. Available funding to test new ideas. Oh yes. Oh my God, burnout. I don't know if anyone reads Anne Helen Peterson, but she wrote a book. She's a culture writer who's been writing specifically a book on literally a book on the millennial culture and burnout and how it manifests in work. Exhaustion from being stressed for so long. Again, another colleague was in here earlier and we were talking about not making big decisions right now because we recognize that a lot of what we're feeling is exhaustion from the never-ending pandemic and the disgust with our fellow human beings. So I can't really read the other stuff because it's on the big screen. Lack of engagement, not wanting to give up current privileges. I'm kind of curious if that's the person who's talking about the hiring or doing the change in hiring, because that was also a conversation that we had to have a lot about giving up privileges. Lack of engagement, uncertainty about students. Oh God, yeah. Cultural shift so that real collaboration can occur, and we, as part of the cohort, we have talked about like there's some research on that and what we can talk about in regarding to that. Exhaustion, lack of engagement, burnout, funding. I can't see the big one because I can't see anything.
Oh, I'll read it. It says not having the power to force institutional change, but trying to influence group behavior slowly with buy-in. And then the other one that's a little bit small is resistance to change from colleagues who are later in their careers and not motivated or willing to try new things.
Oh yes, there's lots of things that we can talk about with the cohort. So I'm gonna move from this Jamboard back to see if we can get that working again. So it keeps going back to the old one, sorry. So I'm gonna have to go all the way back forward.
Great, and I think I'm up next. So we just want to give you a sense a little bit about how the cohort is structured and provide a little bit more detail about kind of the activities and the work that will be part of this experience. And so we are anticipating that out of the 12-week total period for the cohort, about 8 weeks of that are going to be Zoom meetings, so synchronous opportunities for folks to touch base and talk about different things and interact with us and with each other. And there will be about 3 weeks of individual group coaching by one of us. So each one of us is planning on taking a certain amount of teams and working with them throughout the duration of the cohort. Then we are also building in, kind of to Sojourner's point, time to kind of reflect and rest and take a break, recognizing that this is it's an intense experience. And so building kind of accommodating for unexpected things that come up. And then all of our kind of assignments and everything is going to be facilitated and available through Moodle, through the Moodle platform. And then we're also anticipating about 2 to 3 hours a week of small group work and discussion. So again, time on your own with your teams to really dig through the content and talk about what's coming up, and as you kind of go through the different materials. And then also providing a cohort only Slack channel where we can provide some communication and again, touch base and really stay in touch throughout the times that we're not all meeting. And we're thinking about teams of 5 or fewer for each one of us, because obviously that's gonna be a lot, but that's why we're here. We're excited and happy to be able to facilitate some of this work. So that's kind of the overall. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of what each of the weeks will look like. And then Brianna will give you even more details. So I think if we go, yeah, I think that's it. So the content itself, as I mentioned, is going to be synchronous group meetings, coaching sessions, time on your own, time with us, different activities, and supplemental readings for each week. And we are really anticipating that the progression will go through the entire change process. But it's really going to be up to each team to determine the amount of detail and the level of detail that you kind of want or have the ability to invest in. Some, weeks you might be able to dedicate more time and really, get into it and work through the assignments. Other weeks might not, and that's okay. And that's kind of how we're approaching this, is a very flexible process. And sample topics include thinking about how ready your organization is for change. So as we've seen, there's, perhaps some apprehension or some things that are getting in the way of that. How to communicate change effectively, some a little bit more theoretical approaches to change and some of those change frameworks, and then very practical applications in terms of project management and evaluating the change, or thinking about how you would evaluate the change if it's something that you're not able to implement kind of as you're going along through the cohort. Because we do realize that this may just be a plan for the change as opposed to actually implementing the change itself, or a combination of the two. So, and that's okay too. That's why we're keeping things very flexible. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just to give you, like I said, that more detailed view of what each week tentatively looks like. So again, still a work in progress, but we feel pretty comfortable kind of sharing this information at this point. So as you see, we're trying to kind of sprinkle synchronous group meetings with facilitated time with time on your own throughout the entire 12-week period, starting off with a kickoff to get everybody to know each other and share kind of what changes you're thinking about and what are the challenges that you're working through. And then, as I mentioned, kind of going through those different change elements and really getting into the details of that. We are also building in kind of a midpoint check-in at about the halfway point, after which will kind of come part 2, where we're going to be synthesizing everything together and really preparing you for week 12, which is not just going to be a wrap up of the cohort itself, but really talking about how you can take what you've learned and what we've talked about to back to your organizational context, which is really kind of the whole point of this. And it's really, in some ways, it's one of the most important aspects, because you then will have to apply it to whatever that environment is and kind of making changes, depending on what's happening at that moment. And so I think we are ready for another Jamboard. And I'm going to go ahead and share that. So the question here is, why is this cohort interesting? What opportunities do you see being able to participate as part of this cohort? So let me go ahead and share the next Jamboard. And just a reminder, you can progress to the next one by clicking the items here at the top, the arrows here at the top. So why is this cohort opportunity interesting or appealing to you? Yep, networking for ideas, absolutely. Yeah, the community and the sharing aspect of this was crucial for us, which is why we wanted to try to create something kind of alongside the guide. So absolutely, that's super important. Input from those who are not in the organization, absolutely. And seeing things with a different perspective, fresh pair of eyes, maybe some ideas you weren't thinking about, feeling isolated at your institution. Support, so feeling supported, absolutely. So again, it's about that networking, that community building, commiserating if all else fails, if nothing else, just having that moral support, right? That you're not alone in this, and hopefully things will be okay. Learning to cope with changes thrust upon us. That is a very, it's always a challenge when you are not part of the change process, and kind of thinking about strategies for how do you handle that and what do you do in that instance. And in so many cases, that's unfortunately true. Anything else? Any other thoughts or ideas? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I believe Brianna is next.
Thank you, Sojourner, for driving with our slides. We appreciate you.
Sorry, it's like it always restarts at the very beginning and I can't figure out the technology at this point. And I'm really good with technology, so it's the technology's fault.
So I'm going to be sharing just a little bit more information about what some of these sessions might look like. So Cynthia gave a wonderful overview of the cohort experience. And we want to be able to present you with enough information to understand the cohort without hopefully overwhelming you. And so I'll reiterate that what Cynthia, I think, did a great job of sharing, which is that you can really adapt the cohort to your particular needs. However, I'll share some information about some of the particularities for the session formats and for the deliverables that you'll be able to expect to get out of the cohort experience. So these large group sessions, there are a total of 8 out of our 12 weeks, and we are envisioning that the sessions will be divided into 2 main components. So for about the first 20 minutes, one of the facilitators will be sharing content, will be presenting, and we will make sure that we record this. We know that not everyone can make it to every session. We're hoping to have as many teams as possible join so that we can have this experience together, but we definitely want to make this content available to all cohort participants. So it'll be recorded and it'll be uploaded to the Moodle site. The remainder of our time together during the large group discussions we're envisioning will be devoted to breakout sessions. So working on activities together, having discussion and sharing ideas and strategies. Again, with the point being, we're spending our time learning about some of these core issues related to planning for change. And then we are in community with one another, sharing ideas, building connections, and really supporting one another. Next slide, please. Can you go back to the coaching sessions? Thank you. And then the coaching session. So there will be, you'll be matched with a facilitator, one of the 4 of us, with the intention that you'll be able to get individualized support for your change team and for your particular change process. So one of us would be your point person for questions that you have about the cohort. We're all, I think, very approachable. So you could, of course, approach any of us with questions that you have, but this will be sort of your go-to person with the hope that you can maybe develop an even closer connection with this person as they're supporting you through planning for change. You will have an opportunity to have a small group coaching session with them 3 times over the course of the cohort. So week 3, week 6, and week 11. I don't expect that will mean anything to you because we just showed you the high level overview of the cohort, but know that we thought carefully about when would be most effective for you to have that time with us as you're working through your project plan, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. The coaching sessions are really intended just to make sure that you have time to talk with someone if you're facing blockers as you're working on your project plan, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you're feeling like this is a big challenge. A lot of what folks shared in the last Jamboard activity really resonates, I think, with why we wanted to have these coaching sessions so that you could, we'll have activities and such that we can all connect about change. But if you're facing particular challenges in your organization that maybe you don't want to talk about within that larger group, your time with the facilitator, I think, is a really good opportunity to work through some of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the cohort deliverables. As we said, this program, I think, can adapt to your particular needs depending on the scope of your change and depending on where you're at in the planning process, right? If you're really just getting started to plan out in a detailed sense what your change might look like, or maybe you have a pretty good sense and you're refining your change plan. Some of this, the way that folks are entering into the cohort, it might be a little bit different, but there are some of these core deliverables that we want to support you in leaving the cohort with. There will be other activities and other other things that we think you'll be able to take away. And of course, the community building and the networking is a huge aspect of that that's separate from these deliverables. But what you can anticipate coming away with, being able to show documented team norms and values. So how you will be working with your change team, which we think is a really good foundation for a successful change process, a project plan. And I just plugged in a screenshot of the template, which is actually can be found in the Fostering Change Guide as well, if you'd like to take a further look at this. It's a fairly general project plan, and this is intentional. We want you to be able to adapt it to your particular needs and to add, again, as much detail as you need, depending on the scope of your particular project. But there are some common elements, right, that we're all going to need to address as we plan for change. So defining our goals, thinking through team roles and responsibilities, what is in scope, what is out of scope, and starting to think a little bit about what kind of milestones you might set for your particular change plan. There's also a more detailed communication plan that we're going to support you in creating. So the communication plan is sort of nested within this larger project plan, but we will be taking extra time to talk about the communication plan because we think it's really that important to do well. And an elevator speech about your change so that you can go back to your organization and you can talk about fairly quickly and at a high level so folks can understand your proposed change. So with that, we have one more Jamboard. Hopefully you're not too sick of Jamboards, but everyone has been a really good sport about them so far. So thank you. What deliverables would be helpful to bring back to your organization? And I understand that this is fairly narrowly scoped to deliverables, but we are hoping to hear more about some of the tangible things. Maybe it could also be skills that would be useful to you. So Cynthia, if you can pull up our Jamboard, please. Feel free to add ideas that you have here. All right, we've got one, a way to translate the information to colleagues. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's a really good one. And I think, you know, what we've really been talking about and what was alluded to earlier is spending that last session talk in our wrap up, talking about what are some of these concrete ideas, skills, shared practices that we can bring back to our organization that are both specific to the change that we want to implement and also are maybe more general when we're thinking about change in our organizations. A bibliography supporting the specifics of what you're planning and why. Excellent.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah. And we have all sorts of materials and resources about change. I mean, we've got readings and frameworks, and don't be overwhelmed. A lot is optional. Again, dig in as you wish. We have all sorts of resources. Timeline, very important. Yes, absolutely. And a way to think about how you can sort of structure that work in the dependencies for sure. Credibility given to the project. Yes, absolutely. An outline framework to use with communicating the process. That is definitely something you will get out of this cohort. I think we've spent a lot of time talking through what's the most useful way to introduce some of these concepts so that really we're envisioning that you can be building out this change plan week by week, sort of as you go, so that it's not like we get to the end and, hey, work on that change plan now. So we're hoping to really build that in. Being able to discuss change without fear of loss, failure, stature, etc. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's a great one. Strategies to foster openness to change in colleagues. Yeah, these are great. And I will say what everyone has shared on the Jamboard, not just on this page, I think has definitely resonated with me and I would guess probably resonated a lot with my co-facilitators, because these are all the things that we've been talking about as we worked on the workbook, as we are thinking about the cohort. So yes, these are absolutely resonating with me. And I think there will be a lot of space to discuss these further and come up with some concrete strategies and takeaways too. All right, I don't think I missed any. Thank you, everyone. Everyone was so great about sharing on the Jamboards. I was not necessarily a Jamboard believer when I was first exposed to one, but now I quite like them. So we've made it to the very end of our presentation. We have our thank you slide where you can see all of our information. If you'd like to reach out to us individually, we do hope that you will register for the cohort. We're really excited to work with change teams. We're all passionate about change. We're passionate about practical strategies to support change that is person-centered. So we would welcome any questions that you all have about the cohort at this time.
So this is the part where I'm going to chat while people are typing their questions in the Q&A. So I want to second what Brianna had said at the just a few moments ago about, you know, the pieces in the Jamboard that you all shared really resonating with us, and I think kind of speaking to the need for a community of folks who are going through change together, because it can be so fraught and isolating, and kind of thinking about how useful it is to sometimes have that perspective from people who are in other organizations. I remember that's what I really have gotten out of mentoring experiences in the past as well, is, you know, just getting that other perspective. So it looks like we have some questions coming in. Hooray. When will the meetings take place? So we are currently planning for them to be on Fridays. We were hoping that that might be a lighter meeting day for folks, and give people time to process. If we get a lot of folks who are like, Fridays are actively terrible for me, then we will rethink that, but that is our current plan. Our next question is, would you recommend multiple people from an institution participate or only one representative? Yeah, definitely. We're hoping that you'll have up to 5 folks from your institution. We feel like the more people you can get in the planning process, the better. Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
And I just want to say, we also hoped that we would have different, we would have people, we'd have staff, we'd have librarians, we have a mix. And in fact, some of the questions that we've gotten in the past is, does it have to be people from the library? And we said no. We actually were hoping for a mix of library workers if possible. In fact, we'd actually actively recommend a mix of library workers.
And from the ACRL side of things, I do want to note that the registration rate is for a team. It's not per person.
Yeah, that's a great point, Erin. Thank you.
And just a reminder, we do have a scholarship available as well for this particular program.
So if you have other unanswered questions about what is this really going to look like, is it going to be overwhelming? We hope no. We're planning for no, but we'll appreciate your feedback throughout. You know, please be sure to share them with us now through the Q&A feature, or you're welcome to contact us after this webinar as well, and we'll be glad to share with you.
And additionally, if you have any questions, like, we didn't want to tie ourselves down a lot during this presentation in terms of the content, but if you did have questions more specific, please feel free to reach out as well. And I think a lot of us are on Twitter or via email, and all of our information is available as well. Anyone just want to talk? I'm not a therapist, but people talk to me all the time. I have very good common sense. Or is good common sense the best way to frame it?
I also have that opportunity / challenge to join of like, people just talk to me. Yeah, so that resonates with me.
No, I don't understand it. I definitely have resting mean face too, which is what I don't get that, but that is a thing that happens consistently. Like I'm definitely not nice. Oh, Irina and I were just texting. So she says, oh, Laurel, she's nice. Just FYI.
Thanks, Tom, for your comment in the chat. Tom said it doesn't seem as overwhelming after going through the entire webinar. So we're really glad to hear that, because we were also cognizant of not only is there a lot going on right now, there's always a lot going on in the fall. So we really wanted to hopefully present all of the things that are baked into the overall structure to support people in the varying needs that they might have. So spread the word.
Yes.
Not as intense as it seems.
Yeah, we got intense as feedback on Twitter. Suggest that ACRL offer closed captioning. Absolutely, that is a very good point. And I honestly wasn't aware that it wasn't closed caption. So that's a thank you very much. We appreciate it. So it looks like.
Seems like folks are politely remaining with us in the silence, but maybe it's time for us to disband and end a meeting early, which is never a bad thing. But we appreciate you all joining us. The time is precious. So thanks so much for sharing your ideas, being excellent Jamboard participants, and for learning more about the Fostering Change Cohort. So we hope to see you all this fall.
All right.
Yes, thank you all.
Everyone, please stay safe.
100%, take care.
Yes.